Salt City Knits, and I'm excited to be here with you and to share a little bit about my crafting life. I'll be talking about mostly knitting, occasionally with some quilting, crocheting, paper crafting, other sewing mixed in. For those of you who don't know me, I live in Salt Lake City with my husband and our two youngest children, who are both teenagers, and our two oldest are moved and grown and gone and out on their own. We are a homeschooling family and have homeschooled since our oldest, who is almost 27, was just little, and so that's a big part of our lives. And I am an avid knitter and crafter of all things. So I love knitting. It is my craft of choice, but occasionally you'll see me talking about quilting and crocheting and other paper crafts and other forms of crafts. I'm also one half of the Meanwhile at the Castle podcast, along with my amazing sister, Deborah, of Candy Shop Yarns. She is also recording her own podcast. We have podcasted together for about 6 years and a little bit over that, and absolutely have loved it and would love to keep going. There's some possibility we could still continue occasionally with that, but it's mostly just our schedules are really hard to match up. And so after 6 years, we have finally just realized that we kind of have to mostly do our own thing. But don't worry, we love each other and we see each other and talk to each other all the time, and we are still knitting besties. So you will definitely hear us talk about each other a lot. So I just finally recently decided that I wanted to branch out and start my own podcast. It's overwhelming for me because I have never done the video editing part of things. That's always been Deborah. So I'm learning new skills and will definitely be learning as time goes on. My health has not always allowed me to do everything I would like to, specifically with the podcast. I have chronic fatigue syndrome and have dealt with that for almost 10 years. And it recently flared up a couple of years ago quite badly, and has been quite the process to figure out how to just keep doing the things that I love along with that. So on days that I feel good, it is a great time for me to just fit that in, this time to record in. So I have actually recorded this. This is my, I think, third time because like I said, I am learning and figuring out things about how I want things to go. So hopefully this one will stick and I will be able to share this with you. Today, I am mostly going to be, I have one finished object I will be sharing and 3 works in progress, and then a recent favorite read that I wanted to share with you. I am a huge lover of books and reading, and I have a background in writing and publishing of my own books, and just as a homeschooler, you learn to love them, and I've just always been a huge fan. So I definitely will be sharing, hopefully sharing a book each time that I record. I am hoping, 2 fingers crossed, hoping to record every other week. So that is what I am planning on doing. And hopefully when I get to the editing process of all of this, I will find that that is a doable thing for me. So let's talk about finished objects. So I have, first of all, I wanted to talk about the sweater that I am wearing. This is one of my favorite throw over everything cardigans. It is the Lillian cardigan, and I knit this in Yarn Brary. That is my former yarn company, Yarn Brary worsted, memoir worsted, and the colorway is Don't Bother Me, I'm Reading. The pattern is Lillian by Carrie Bostic Hogue, and it's a beautiful, simple raglan cardigan with this wide band. It's not really a button band, just front bands that goes up around the collar, and nice deep cuffs. And I just really love it. It's so great to just throw on over. I don't know, this is a neutral for me. I love color, and so gray speckled with neons is definitely a neutral for me. So that is what I'm wearing today. So my finished object that I wanted to share was such a fun pattern. I tend to use my iPad for patterns most of the time. Occasionally I print things out, but mostly if I have like something I need to check boxes on or track a chart and I'm going to highlight or things like that. Other than that, I tend to use my iPad. So I'm going to try to show you pictures and I think it will work out. So this project is called Little Leftovers, and it is a cowl pattern, and it is so much fun. It is by Telly Bean Knits, Stephanie Lotven. I think that's Lotven or Lotven. And here is, let's see if I can show you. Oh, isn't that just beautiful? Oh, it's so pretty. I just absolutely love her picture. So my local knitting group, we decided to all knit this pattern, and we're going to wear them to the Great Basin Fiber Festival, which will be here in the Salt Lake. Actually, I think it's in Farmington, Utah. So it's in the area in Utah in May. So this is such a fun pattern. It's definitely meant for you to use up your scraps. Some of these stripes are taking 2 or 3 grams, maybe. So you can, I think the smallest one is like 1.5 grams that you would need for this little piece here. So it's definitely one that you can just use up all of your scraps. It's got different texture and lace patterns alternating with garter stitch. And it's a bandana cowl style. And you start out knitting it flat and then join it to work in the round. And I joined it to work in the round 2 stripes after the pattern calls, just because I wanted a little bit more drape in my neckline. And so that is the change that I made to it. Because of that change, that meant that sometimes I had to alter the little lace or texture patterns, but they were all ones where it was quite simple to see what the pattern is that you wanted and then be able to kind of work it from the center back, if that makes sense. I wanted to end up at the correct place at the center point in the pattern. And so I would try to see what that point would be and then start the pattern in the correct place to end up there, if that makes sense. But you don't have to do that. That was just something I wanted to do to give me a little bit more drape. A lot of the other ladies in the group have just knit it just as it is written and have had so much fun. But isn't that just fun? I just love how it turned out. I just love the fun V's that the pattern creates and the different textures. And it's such a great way to use up your scraps. And we all have all those scraps, right? So I really enjoyed that. Such a fun knit. And it was a really quick knit too. I think the entire project is, let's see, I'm trying to remember how many yards the entire project uses. It looks like it's just over 100 grams. So just over a skein of fingering weight yarn. It is fingering weight. Really, really fun. I use the recommended needle. Highly recommend it. Such a blast. I think I will knit another 1 or 2 or 3 of these. So that was my first. And I blocked it like this. I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to block it, but this is how I blocked it instead of like this. And I think it lays really nicely because with that blocking. So much fun. This colorway right in here, this stripe, is called Meanwhile at the Castle. It was dyed by Amanda Makes Yarn years and years ago when we first started Meanwhile at the Castle podcast. That was fun to have a little bit of that in there. All right, so that's my finished object I wanted to show. And my first work in progress is my cardigan that I am working on right now. Let me pull up the pattern. It is called the Koivu cardigan. Let's see if I can actually spell. The Koivu cardigan, and it is by Meiju KP. So there it is right there. And the main part of the cardigan is quite simple in its looks. It is a crew neck and a long sleeve and a straight button band. Oh, I don't know if that's going to show up very well. Sometimes it's hard to show things on. Here we go. But it has this beautiful lace. Isn't that gorgeous? So I am knitting this cardigan in this gorgeous red color. This is a one-of-a-kind colorway from Yarn Cafe Creations. Here it is in the cake. So pretty and vibrant and just beautiful. Of course, it's showing a little more high contrast on the screen than it is in person, which is pretty typical, but it's just a beautiful color. And she had 6 skeins of this that she was clearing out, Christy did, and I just fell in love with it. So I bought that a couple of years ago, year and a half ago, and I'm finally working on it. I was hoping to get it done for Christmas, but it ended up having to hibernate so that I could finish other projects I wanted to do, which is, you know, that's how it goes. So the wonderful thing that I love about this cardigan is the shoulder and sleeve construction. It has, I think this is called a saddle shoulder, but I could be wrong on that. But you create the, this shoulder kind of placket and then a set-in sleeve as you're working the yoke. So there's no short rows involved, if I remember correctly. I don't think there were any short rows involved. It's all about doing the proper decreases or increases as you are constructing the yoke from the top down. And it makes a beautiful set-in sleeve without, like I said, without doing those short rows or having to go back and pick up stitches around the sleeve cap. So anyway, I just think it's really cool. It's fingering weight yarn, and this is the biscotti sock base from Yarn Cafe Creations. I love this base. I think it's an 85-15 merino nylon, but it has such a beautiful finish, and the fabric of this sweater is really gorgeous. It's knit on a US 2.5 needle, US 2.5, which I think is a 3 millimeter, if I'm right. Let's see, I have my needles in this case from 5 to 6 Handmade. And let's see, I want to double check and make sure I'm saying that right. But it's a US 2.5. So it's a smaller needle than what I have knit a cardigan on before ever. So you use a 2.5, that's a 3 millimeter, yeah. And then ooh, that was fun. We don't need that. We don't need camera issues after my multiple times recording here. There we go. And then a US size 2 for the ribbing. And the front bands are knit at the same time, so there is no, again, picking up stitches and then knitting the front bands separately. They are quite curly right now. I'm really hoping they're going to block out nicely. The lace panel on the back, though, isn't that just beautiful? Oh, it's so pretty. I will say this is one that, even though I am a fairly experienced lace knitter, I did have to refer to the chart every row. It wasn't one where I was able to just memorize the lace pattern after so many repeats. I did definitely have to keep referring to it, and I think that did slow me down a little bit. Not that that's a problem, but it's just taken me a little longer. And that combined with the smaller needle size. So But I finished the first sleeve. I'm on the second sleeve. So I think that I will be able to get it just rolling. I just needed to give my hands a little bit of a break from the weight of all that whole sweater on the needles. It's been a little bit wearing on my hands once I started that second sleeve. So I'm really thrilled with that. I'm excited to be able to wear it. I hear people tell me all the time that they're amazed that I knit fingering weight cardigans. We love to knit. First of all, you can knit whatever you want. You don't have to knit a fingering weight cardigan. But when you love to knit, what's the matter with that having lots of stitches? It's okay. You just can enjoy that. All right. My next work in progress is a frustrating one. I'm just rolling my eyes. I started out as a crocheter, not a knitter. I've been knitting for about 10 years and definitely much more skilled as a knitter than I am a crocheter. But I have a granny square blanket that I have been working on for over a year. And this is my problem. Look at these two blocks. Look at the difference in size. I have lined up this side and this corner as much as I can. Hold on. And look at the difference in size in these two blocks. This keeps happening to me. I keep having issues with my gauge. It changes so dramatically. Unless I sit and crochet square after square after square after square, if I put it down and pick it up a week later, my gauge is suddenly different again. I tension my yarn the same way. I use the same hook, the same yarn, same girl, different tension. I mean, that happens with knitting too, but I'm much more consistent with knitting than I am apparently with crochet. So what this means is I end up having to unravel and recrochet the squares over and over again. I mean, not over and over again, but it has happened several times. I have crocheted all of the color squares I am doing for this baby blanket, and I don't have them here right now. And so I'm working on these that are much more simple. They're just a very basic granny square with an undyed yarn. These are again fingering weight, and I'm using a 2.5 millimeter hook. Oops. And I just am frustrated. So it's really slowed me down from finishing up this project. Putting those away. But I have to show you this bag because it's one of my very favorite bags. It is this gorgeous embroidered linen bag from Sherry Iris. Isn't this so pretty? Oh, it says the earth laughs in flowers. I just love it. It makes me so happy. So there is that. I might want to lose my mind over those crochet squares, but at least the bag is beautiful. Okay, this last one I am so excited to show. This is the Fragmentation Shawl by Stephen West. And it is his newest shawl release. And it's just so fun. So here is the photo. And this shawl is knit in, you knit a little teeny semicircle, and then you knit these wedges. So you knit all of the first wedge. And then the second wedge, you knit and connect it to the first one as you go. And then you go through and knit all these wedges. But they're knit with all these different stripes. And then the way he's lined them up kind of gives this almost like spiral staircase feel to it. Here's another photo, another example. Isn't that beautiful? Now, I was looking at, and here's that same sample in a larger picture. Oh, okay. Well, we're just going to throw my iPad on the floor. That's so typical of me. Let's try that again. So I saw this sample or example that he had posted on Instagram from his testers that looked like this. And I loved the look of that solid color that where the stripes were lined up instead of stair-stepped, kind of like I said, the spiral staircase. And then different colors kind of scattered. This one's a little bit more, I think the what do I want to say? Not the black, but the colorful parts are a little more stair-stepped. But it gave me the idea of how I wanted to knit this shawl. I love the size and the shape of that shawl. It reminds me in size and shape of the Starflake shawl, which I knit last October and absolutely loved. Loved everything about making that shawl. I didn't love undoing brioche repeatedly because I was just learning. And I did eventually figure it out and how to fix my mistakes. And so I'm proud of that. But I didn't love every minute of that part, but I loved the shawl and I absolutely love wearing it. So I love the size. And so I wanted to make this. So what I am using, here's what I have so far. Oh, I love these colors. Oh, just makes me so happy. So starting out with this little semicircle, and then this is my first wedge. I am using an undyed Surrey alpaca fingering weight yarn in place of the black in that photo example that I showed. And so this will line up in all the wedges and create kind of this rainbow, not rainbow in the color order, but rainbow in the shape of the undyed mixed with scraps, and I'm definitely talking scraps of my pastel color palette. Isn't it fun? And look at the texture. I love that halo that you get from Surrey. I love Surrey so much more. For me, it's better than alpaca or than mohair. I just love the softness of it. It's just dreamy. It's like a cloud. So, oh my goodness, I'm enjoying that. So this is my Surrey alpaca. Again, it's 100% Surrey alpaca. There's no silk in this one. And it's fingering weight. And then I am using scraps and minis that I have gathered up. And they're mostly in the pink and pale yellow with occasional little bits of purple or blue or turquoise in there, but mostly pink and yellow. This bag was a gift from my sister, Deborah, and it's by Black Pearl Magic. Isn't that so much fun? Sparkly pink, so cute. But it's so fun because some of these little wedges, these little stripes in the wedges are just teeny little bits. So you can use up little tiny, tiny, tiny scraps. And yeah, that's definitely what I'm hoping to do. Oh, I just love it. I think it's going to be beautiful. I can't stop looking at it, actually. It's just so fun. I think it's going to be really enjoyable to knit too. I think one of the things that's hard about big shawls is that when you get to the end rows, the rows are so long. They're like, 800, 900 stitches, depending on what the shawl is. Whereas this one is never going to get that way because you're knitting it modularly. So, I mean, you'll get to 1/7 of that. There's 7 wedges. So maybe I don't know, maybe there'll be 150 stitches or so. I really don't know. I'm not that far yet. But you're never going to have these huge rows that you're working on. So I think it's just going to be so fun. I'm really hoping that I'll just keep loving it as much as I am right now. Oh, it's pretty. I just love that. So pretty. Doesn't it just make you happy? Knitting just makes me happy. So that's what I'm working on right now. My cardigan, my crochet squares, and the Fragmentation shawl by Stephen West. Stephen West is so much fun. I wasn't sure about his designs. When I first saw a lot of Stephen West designs, I thought, those are just not for me. I don't see, it's not that I thought that they weren't for anybody, but I just didn't see them as being for me. But then the more I've seen how other people adapt, he has so many cool techniques that you can adapt those to your color palette and your taste and really find some amazing things. And I just have really enjoyed it. All right, so I'm excited to share a book with you today. I read this book in January. This is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. For anybody who likes fantasy, this book is such a huge buzz. Brandon Sanderson last year, I think it was in March of last year, announced that he had written 4 novels. Brandon Sanderson's one who always says, these are the books I'm working on. Here's the progress. Here's when they're probably going to be published. And he's like really open with everybody about them. So if you're a fan of his books, you know what's coming up and you know when generally it's going to be coming. So when he announced that he had written 4 additional books and that he was doing a Kickstarter so that he could publish them, it was huge. It was the biggest Kickstarter ever. And so, I mean, just exploded. And I was one of the people who was super excited, and I ordered these books. So my first book came in January, and I listened to the audiobook, but then because I couldn't wait. And this book, the beautiful, gorgeous hardback book, was a little bit farther out and I couldn't wait for it. Plus I love audiobooks, and it was fabulous. It was such a great audiobook. I cannot say enough about how fun this book was. A lot of Brandon Sanderson books you wouldn't necessarily describe as fun. Like, they're awesome, they're epic, they're impressive, they're inspiring, they're adventuresome, but this one is fun and all those other things too. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful book. Tress is an amazing character. She is quirky and powerful and unconventional, and she is an amazing heroine. I love her. She is unafraid to do whatever it takes to meet her goals but in the best way of being like the best friend, and I don't know, she's loyal. She's just so great. And the book itself is just fun and engaging and hilarious, laugh out loud hilarious. This has got some really neat artwork in it. So I just can't recommend it enough. This is the cover for the book when you buy it directly from Dragon Steel, which is Sanderson's publishing company. But you can also buy it, I think there's a more of a mass market version out there as well with a different cover. And the only thing is that he is not releasing this book on Audible. So if you want to read it, it's available on Spotify and on Speechify. Those are the 2 places where you can get the audiobook. And if you're interested in more about why he is not releasing it on Audible, he has a video about that on his channel, Dragon Steel. But it's very interesting, and I support his decision. I just love it. It was so much fun. I think it kind of reminded me of Princess Bride a little bit. Also, one note about it is if you are a Brandon Sanderson fan and you have read any of his books that take place in his Cosmere, you will absolutely adore this book. But I don't think you have to have read his other books to still really enjoy it. I think you'll enjoy it even more if you've read some of his other books, but you don't have to have in order to enjoy this. That's my opinion. The other thing about it is clean. It is not like you can hand this to your teenager or older middle grade child, I would say, and be able to have them enjoy it as well. That's my take on it. I absolutely loved it. So a fun book recommendation, and I hope that you enjoy Tress. I think that's everything that I wanted to share. I'm hoping that I'll be able to get this edited and up, and that I'll be able to record every couple of weeks, but it's been so nice. It's so great to be able to talk and share, and I hope to be able to connect with you and see you again soon. Thank you, everybody.